All right, good afternoon. I want to know, when will your business be disrupted? When will you lose your edge? At what point do we cross over between a valued professional and a commoditized professional, a commoditized service provider? I've been hosting conversations all last week and through this week. Last week, I talked about emotional intelligence, different facets of emotional intelligence. This week, I'm talking about humanity in the face of technology. And I want to stress from the very beginning that I am not an expert on these topics. I'm simply here to facilitate a conversation. So I hope you'll join in this conversation. But who am I? Right. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you already know that. My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm the president and chief strategy officer of Echo Engagement. I'm also the director of brand strategy at Entree Architect. And as part of those duties with Entree Architect, I host a podcast called Context and Clarity. I host a podcast called Build Your Brand. And I also host a live stream every weekday afternoon called Context and Clarity Conversations. As a part of that whole ecosystem, I host conversations on Clubhouse, and then I do a live with my co-host, Catherine McPhail, every weekday afternoon, or every Thursday afternoon, where we have a special guest, and we set a theme for the week based on our special guest and who that special guest is and what they'll talk about. This week, our theme is humanity in the face of technology, because our special guest will be Brian Kramer. He's a best-selling author. He's a TED speaker. He's a keynote speaker. And Brian talks a lot about speaking human in a technology-driven world. So yesterday, I started these conversations talking about or exploring the topic of humanity in the face of technology by asking the question, how do we bring humanity? How do we bring 2019 engagement, human connection, human conversations, human collaboration into the business model, into the workplace of the future? Now, you may have imagined that because my title with Entree Architect is Director of Brand Strategy, and it's with an organization called Entree Architect, most of, maybe all of the audience for those context and clarity conversations are architects, and you'd be right. However, I had this realization as I was preparing for last week. We're talking about emotional intelligence. We're talking about empathy. We're talking about getting to know our clients better. We're talking about getting to know ourselves better and being better at our craft. I came to the realization that these are not conversations just for architects, and put "just" in quotes, but these are conversations for all professionals. These are conversations for all of you, for all of us, no matter who we serve and what we do. And so whether you are in professional services, who, I fully recognize is really the majority of my audience. So if you're a real estate agent, if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, if you're a creative or a design professional, certainly an architect, an engineer, construction professional, anybody in that realm or beyond, all of these conversations are completely applicable. They're completely relevant to you and your work. So whether you're serving a customer, a client, a patient, whatever you call that person, understanding how to bring humanity into what you do is extremely important. So the question I'm starting with today is, how do we bring humanity into the business development realm? And this all comes from a conversation. Someone asked a question about a week ago, and they said, you know what, I'm really busy right now. And that's a great thing. I'm hearing that a lot. Many people are really busy right now. If you are a real estate agent, this may be the busiest you've ever experienced, the busiest market you've ever experienced. If you're in some other professional services, I know attorneys are very busy. I know accountants are very busy, not only because it's tax season, but with PPP in the United States and other things going on, there are more accountants working harder than they've ever worked before. Same is true for many architects, etc. So this friend said, I'm really busy right now. Good thing. I'm getting a lot of inquiries right now. Good thing. The question is, their question was, which of these inquiries do I respond to? How quickly do I need to respond to them? How do I avoid this overwhelm that's coming from being busy and getting more and more inquiries? And the advice that they got back from people in the community was spread all over the board. It was advice like, you need to respond to every inquiry. It was advice like, you need to respond to those inquiries within 24 to 48 hours. It was advice like, you can use this software to help manage some of these things. You can use this automation to help manage some of these things, or you can use this tool to help you qualify some of these leads. And the fact of the matter is, all of that is really good advice. But it also points out the fact, and I think it also raises the question, it's why I wanted to entertain this question today. It raises the question, how do we find that balance, right? We can't afford to be overwhelmed, because what comes after overwhelm? Burnout comes after overwhelm. What happens when we're not balancing these things? What happens when we're not delivering the appropriate experience? What happens when we're not able to serve our clients and our prospective clients or customers or patients, whatever you call them? What happens when we're not able to serve them at this level that gives them an experience that sets us apart from our competitors, from other experts in the field? Well, what happens is it all collapses. And at worst case scenario, we collapse right under that overwhelm, under that burnout. And so we can't afford to do that. And so I think that begs the question, how do we balance the human touch, right? In the example given, I'm very busy. I'm getting a lot of inquiries. So how do we balance human touch with technology? Because there are a lot of ways, CRMs and automation tools and all kinds of things, questionnaires, email templates, there's all kinds of things that we can use. So how do we balance those things out? Because the fact of the matter is, whether you are a doctor or an attorney or a real estate agent or whatever it is that you do, your clients, customers, patients, the people that you serve are looking for the best fit. That's how they're making decisions. I'm looking for the best fit in this real estate agent. I'm looking for the best fit in this doctor, whatever it is. They're looking for the best fit to do whatever it is that you do. They're not looking to purchase whatever you do as a professional service. They're not looking to purchase that on Amazon.com, right? So how do you balance that human touch, that humanity with the technology that is available to us? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And so the first thing I would ask is, if you are online, if you're watching this right now, or even in the future, if you're watching the replay of this, if you're watching the replay, use the hashtag replay. Say, hey, I'm watching the replay. If you're watching this live, say hi. Let me know that you're here. And also let me know where you are and what you do. So if you're seeing this on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch, say hi. Say, hey, I'm here. And this is who I am. And this is what I do. Put that in the comments section. Again, I want to make it very clear, as the dogs bark in the background, I want to make it very clear, I'm not an expert on this, but I am here to facilitate a conversation, because I think these conversations make all of our businesses, make all of our professions stronger. I think these are important conversations, because if we can figure this out, we can be better at what we do. We can be better at our craft. We can be better professionals. We can stand out. We can differentiate ourselves amongst the other professionals, right? If there's someone that you compete against that's not part of this conversation, you have an advantage now. And another thing that I think is really important for us to understand, and I show this as a pseudo-mathematical equation sometimes. This is at the very heart of what I do with my clients. All of us want to differentiate ourselves, right? Many people that are in the world that I'm in serving professional services people, many people talk about differentiation, and differentiation is great, right? The extreme example that I use a lot is if you are going to meet with a client, right? You've got a potential client that's interviewing two or three people like you, two or three real estate agents, two or three attorneys, two or three architects, whatever. If you go and meet with that potential client, maybe your whole team goes, and you all go dressed in bright yellow tuxedos with tails and bright yellow top hats, you will certainly differentiate yourself. But does it matter, right? This is the extreme example. Does it matter? Does anything about your team dressed in bright yellow tuxedos and tails and top hats, does any of that matter to your prospective client there? And the answer is probably no. It makes you memorable, certainly. It certainly differentiates yourself. But what are you doing for that prospective client? What are you doing that's more relevant to that prospective client than anybody else, right? So relevance is always greater than difference. So relevance is greater than difference. Put that in parentheses. And empathy is greater than the two combined, or empathy is necessary to get to relevance, which is greater than differentiation. And I think that's a great way to think about, and a great reason to think about humanity as well, because you can build the greatest system. And I've talked about this before when I talk about profitability. I get to talk about profitability a lot with professionals. Hey, how do we build the most profitable professional services firm? And there are a lot of people that have built profitability engines inside their firm, which means they have systems and processes inside their business, whatever they are. They have those inside their business, and they have this profit engine that's built, which is fantastic. It's good. It's necessary. It's a good thing to have. But if you're not putting the right fuel into that engine, what's going to happen, right? If you don't put the right fuel inside that profit engine, it cannot run efficiently. It cannot spit profitability out on the backside. You have to put the right fuel into the right engine in order to be profitable. So we talk about that sometimes, right? And so this idea of being profitable then goes back to, are we bringing in the right clients? Are we connecting with the right clients? And in order to do that, in order to understand those clients and understand who is the right client, we have to have empathy for those clients. So we have to have empathy so we can understand what's relevant to them. And there's no way that we can do any of that without humanity. So as I think about this entire equation, the empathy leads to the relevance that's greater than differentiation. If we want to bring the human touch to this conversation, when we're talking about business development, right? If we're automating everything, if we're running everything through our CRM, which is an important tool. If you don't have a CRM, look it up, figure out what it is, start using one. But we've got to be able to balance that humanity with that technology. So my question is, how do we do that? I said earlier that I host a conversation, a coffee talk is what I call it, inside of Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app. If you're there, look up the Context and Clarity Club. Every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, I host a coffee talk inside the Context and Clarity Club on the Clubhouse app. That's a little bit meta, right? And so some of the conversation, or some of the points that came out of that conversation this morning, they were fantastic, by the way, but some of the things that were shared were, we have to be able to prioritize some of these leads, right? We may have a way of capturing things via email, via our website, via social media, wherever these are coming from. We have to be able to prioritize things. So I'm looking at this one that came in, and I have to ask, is there any way in the world this is my ideal client? We know right off the bat, some of those are not. So is there a button that I can push that can just push something out that says, you know what, thank you for your inquiry, but we only do this kind of work. I'm just making that up off the top of my head. Is there some other version of that? Some other hierarchy is really a better word for that. Is there the next step up in the hierarchy that says, you know what, I need to know more about this person. So maybe I shoot them off an email that feels really personalized. It says, hey, thanks for your inquiry. I need to know more about what you're talking about. Can you answer these 3 questions? Maybe. Again, just making it up off the top of my head. The next level of hierarchy is there something that points out that this may not be my ideal client, but it came as a referral from somebody in my network. So from someone in my referral network, hey, I may need to take a little bit of more time and do this person a service by pointing them to the right service provider. Right? How human is that? They're not the right fit, but I'm going to point them to the person that may be the right fit. Many people, many professionals that I run into have this scarcity mindset. They have this fear of referring a lead to someone else. Please do that. Think about that. Think about how human that is. Think about how human it is to refer someone to the right fit rather than trying to serve them when we know that we're not the right fit for them. That's no good for us. It's no good for them. Serving them by sending them to someone that is the right fit does service to them. It does service to that other person. That other professional may become a service or a referral person for you. They may reciprocate, right? And then maybe the highest point of hierarchy is that person that does look like our ideal client. That may need to be a phone call right now, right? Hey, do you have 10 minutes to jump on the phone or on Zoom or whatever it looks like in 2021? I want to make sure that we're the right fit. It seems like we are, but I want to make sure that I can serve you, serve your needs the best I can. I want to make sure that I can give you a great client experience. And so that was, to me, one of the best things that came out of the conversation this morning is this idea of hierarchy and determining, not only determining who's the right fit, who's the ideal client, but then what we do based on where they are, maybe on a scale, maybe on a spectrum, something like that. Other things that came out certainly were technological solutions, CRMs being one of those. Those are great tools. Again, if you're not using a CRM, why not? HubSpot. I don't get anything out of saying this. I don't get anything out of recommending this. HubSpot has a great free CRM. If you're not using one, grab the HubSpot free CRM and start using it. There are ways, I think, to build, I know there are ways to build processes within that HubSpot CRM that are going to help you be more human to the prospects that are coming in, that are going to help you build workflows and are going to help you build your pipeline and visualize your pipeline so you know when you absolutely need to have human contact. So that came out of the conversation this morning. And I think maybe the last big takeaway that I want to share from this morning, because I want to share it, number one, because it wasn't one that I expected. It wasn't a direction I expected the conversation to go in this morning. I thought it was really, really important. And I want to share this last one because I've got to jump off onto another call here in just a minute. But so right before I share that, again, if you're listening live, say hi. Let me know that you're here and let me know where you are and what you do. And if you're watching this in a replayed version on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on Twitch, use the hashtag replay and comment on those and tell me what you do and where you are. But to that last big takeaway, someone mentioned the fact that, all this conversation about humanity and human touch with our potential clients is great, but we have to be sure that we're leaving ourselves enough room, enough grace for ourselves to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We're talking a lot about taking care of our clients and our potential clients, and how do we balance these things, and what do we automate and what do we not, and keeping ourselves, staving off the overwhelm. The comment was, we need to make sure that we're being human with ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And then somebody else did a yes and, which I love. Google yes and see what comes up. Someone did a yes and they said, are the things, especially in creative services, and that was the audience this morning, especially in creative services, design services, architectural services, but all of you that are in professional services, your asset, the asset that you're bringing to the table is your expertise, possibly your creativity, but it's that whatever your profession is, the asset that you're bringing to the table is your creativity. It is your expertise. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're eroding that asset, right? If you are overwhelmed, if you are burnt out, if you are too tired, if you are any of those things, right? You can't be at your best, which means that you can't serve at your best. You can't be as creative as you should be. You can't be as expert as you should be because you're distracted, you're overwhelmed, you're overworked, you're burnout, you're tired, whatever it is. And so I thought, that those two, the first comment and the yes and building on top of that, I thought were incredibly powerful. I think we need to make sure that we're paying attention to those things. So figure out that balance. Figure out how to balance these things. That's my encouragement today. Figure out how to balance these things. Figure out the technology that you should be using, the automation that you should be using. Use the hierarchy to determine, does this person get a phone call or a Zoom call, or do they get a questionnaire, or do they get an automated email response, or do they get, thanks, but this is my minimum fee, or something like that. However you would do that lowest level disqualification, whatever it is. So those are really my three takeaways today from the conversation. Again, I started these conversations last week here on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and live streaming on Twitch at 2 p.m. Eastern every day. This is an experiment. This is to see if these conversations can take traction. I know for a fact it takes a long time to get traction. I know for a fact it takes a long time to build an audience. If you're wondering where you've heard of me before, if that's in your head at all, maybe you have seen my Coffee a Day initiative. I published 300 of those stories. I know it takes a long time to get traction. I started with Mark R. LePage last year. Mark's the founder of Entre Architect. I started hosting the Context and Clarity conversations last year on April 6th, every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So I've hosted, 200 of those conversations by now. I know it takes a long time to build an audience, to build a community, which is really what I'm most interested in, and to get traction in these conversations. So I started these conversations last week. Like I said, every day last week was about emotional intelligence. Every day this week will be about humanity and finding the balance between humanity and technology. And I said at the beginning, the reason that we have these themes every week are because Catherine and I host a special guest every Thursday afternoon, which is simulcast to the Entre Architect Community Facebook page. It's also broadcast to LinkedIn Live. So if you're seeing this on LinkedIn right now, you'll see it right here on LinkedIn on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's also broadcast to the Entre Architect YouTube page and the Entre Architect Twitch stream. And our special guest this week will be Brian Kramer. That's Bryan Kramer, Kramer. He's a TED speaker. He's a great keynote speaker. He's got a book called It's Not B2B or B2C. It's H to H, human to human. He's also got a book called Shareology. And Brian talks a lot about speaking human in a technology-driven world. So we'll be talking to him on Thursday. And that really sets the theme for the week, this balancing humanity and technology. And so that's what we're talking about. Tomorrow, I'll be back here again, 2 p.m. Eastern, to talk about humanity, combining humanity, balancing humanity with the technology that we have. Today, we're talking about technology and business development. Tomorrow, we'll talk about technology in the tools that you use, whether it's presentation tools or the tools that you use to do your job. So how do you use that technology to feel like your clients, your customers, your patients are more connected with your work? How do you use that technology to make your clients, your customers, your patients feel more engaged in working with you, in what you do, in your craft? And so that's what we'll talk about tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. I hope that you'll join me if you're seeing this in the future, if you're seeing the recorded version of this. Think about it. Comment where you can, where you want to on today's recording. And again, I'm not the expert. So if you're an expert on any of these things, weigh in. I invite you to weigh in. I am here to facilitate a conversation. I'm not pretending to be an expert. If you're an expert, weigh in. If you have questions or comments, weigh in. Let's marry those things up in these conversations at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back again tomorrow. So I appreciate your time. If you're seeing this live, I appreciate you watching this later. If you're seeing this in the recorded version, if you're seeing this, the recording of this, use hashtag replay. Hey, I'm watching this, hashtag replay. I'm in wherever you are. I do whatever you do. Put that in the comments. So thank you for your attention. I'll be back here again tomorrow. Let's do it again.